Action Network Saturday Action Rally, coming to you live on WLIB 1190 AM in New York. We're streaming to you across the country on a number of platforms. In the 10 o'clock hour, we'll be live on the Impact Television Network, and we're live here in the House of Justice, 106 West 145th Street. Call somebody. Tell them the action is on the air. The Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton is right here in the house. In fact, right now, brothers and sisters, please get on your feet. Put your hands together. If you're home, certainly put your hands together for the president and founder of the National Action Network, the Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. What do we want? Justice. What do we want? Justice. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. When do we want it? Now. When do we want it? Now. Hug the person next to you. Tell them you love them. National Action Network Change Choir, give them a big hand. Give them a big hand. Certainly we're happy to be with you Saturday morning for the Saturday Action Rally. For you that are here live at the House of Justice, 106 West 145th Street in the village of Harlem. And for you that are listening live on 1190 AM WLIB in New York, and you that are watching live stream, and we will be joined momentarily on national television, on Impact Television. We're happy to be with you to give our weekly report on the Saturday morning action rally at the House of Justice. Give a hand to our presider, Attorney Michael Hardy. Glad Minister Tyrone Richardson back with us. Give a hand to Pastor Andre Coffey, First Timothy Baptist Church, North New Jersey. Glad to have him and his message of inspiration this morning. And let me say I'm going to cover a lot of things quickly. I was not here last Saturday because I was in South Carolina State Democratic Convention, and I did my MSNBC show from there. And many of you saw where I challenged Mr. Biden on his embrace of segregationists.
and he still has not apologized. He told me he understood how I felt. And others are giving him platforms, but he should be challenged. I'm not saying that we should not support him if he's nominated, but nobody should get a pass on dealing with busing and dealing with segregationists. Friendship does not give you immunity from being accountable. I can be your friend better if we have an honest discussion. Is that not right? So people talk about y'all got to be unified. Unity means let's clear the air. And I was down both nights at the debates, and I thought that it was a very interesting debate both nights. As one that went through 32 presidential debates when I ran in '04, I know how, see, I grew up in the church, a boy preacher, so I'm used to big raucous crowds. But a lot of them, the first time they got in a raucous crowd, so they was a little nervous. But I'm used to y'all just carrying on, throwing fans, acting up, walking to the bathroom while I give my punch. I'm used to all that. They wasn't used to that. But I thought that they did Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker did an excellent job. I'm not saying the rest didn't. I'm just saying they did an excellent job. Let me say a couple of things. I think as we I also want to acknowledge our state senator Brian Benjamin. Give him a I think as we look at what is going on in New York and all of our people listening by radio, I think that we are at a serious crossroad. And that is where we go forward or where we go backwards. The objective of a movement is to make change. And don't get style confused with content. A lot of us want to appear as agents of change and not become agents of change. Our objective was to make the criminal justice system work fairly. Gwen Clark is here, as she is every week, the mother of Eric Garner. Give her a hand. We didn't go and burn the courthouse down. We went and we asked the courthouse to give justice for the policeman choking our son. I'll give you an example. Right now, today, they are burying a man killed in South Bend, Indiana, that they're challenging Mayor Pete Buttigieg on. He's being challenged on dealing with this policeman who was not caught on videotape. We have a video on what happened to Eric and had to go through a police trial. And nobody but Julian Castro even brought up Eric Garner's name in the debates. We were not against the system was against us. And if progressives win and go in the system, they're going in to change the system, not destroy the system. The system was destroyed by those that manipulated the system for their personal greed and needs and friends, rather than taking care of the people. And those with a responsibility to the community need to be consistent about that. There was an election this week in Queens for the Queens DA. And the results, they're doing the recount, but the results look clear. I have a lot of experience in Queens. I grew up in part of Queens till Daddy left. Been arrested more times than I can remember in Queens at demonstrations. And the Sean Bell case, among others, we fought right there in Queens. We need a prosecutor that we have access to talk to. We don't want a job. We don't want a position. We don't want funding. We want to be heard so that the evidence can fall where it may. But you can't present evidence if only one side is heard. Well, Reverend Al, if y'all are out there, that the PBA is out there. Families need something to balance the PBA. PBA has a structured infrastructure with lawyers and resources. We do that for the family. That's all we want is access, which is why I've asked Bishop Taylor to be here this morning, Patrick Young, y'all come and have a seat, because I think that the new DA needs to have the faith community with access to them so that we know that we can be heard and they can make a rational decision based on everything. Do not expect, because somebody's progressive, that they're going to take all. They don't want to be bossed by the left or the right. They want to do what is right. And if people supported them, they supported them to do what's right. At the same time, those that will run and then say, if I lose, I may go and run with the other party, then you are putting your personal ambition above the agenda of what is good for the people. I don't want nobody to say I'm on your side till I lose and I'm going to go with the other side against you. I'm saying that. Tiffany didn't say that. Taylor didn't say that. Young didn't say that. I said that. Al Sharpton. .com or whatever I'm supposed to say. I hope that as the recount is done and is made official, that every vote is counted and counted fairly. And I would hope that the county and the leadership there sits down and let us not have a war against each other, but have a war against criminals in Queens, whether they have on blue jeans or blue uniforms. A criminal is a criminal is a criminal. And if they are not criminals, we need somebody that will fairly look at that. Is that right? So I wanted to, and let me also say this. I am thankful that many of us that have grown, you cannot fight against civil rights being violated against you unless you fight against civil rights being violated against everybody. Porter asked me in Miami the other night, why did I bring Mayor Pete Buttigieg to Sylvia's? I said, because I wanted to stand and make a clear statement about homophobia in the black community. We could have ate downtown, but it needed to be said that I would stand and say he's a credible candidate, I'm not endorsing anybody, and a bright candidate, and that y'all got to stop all of this, yeah, but he's gay. So is folk in your family. First gay person I met in church. Y'all need to quit playing and fronting. Hello? Y'all act like y'all discovered LGBTQ 10 years ago. Folk in Sunday school class was gay and we all knew it. And making folk hide in the closet is wrong. Everybody needs to come out their closet and let's build a beloved community together. That's why I brought Pete there. That's why they're talking about the Pride March tomorrow. When they went and Stonewall, it was a violation of civil rights, and it should be marked like any other rights situation. My grandson all dressed up today, got his bow tie half year old. We might go to the Pride Patrol, the Pride Parade tomorrow with a bow tie on. You got outfits for me? I see you got your hair slicked back for me. So it is in that spirit that we welcome who we feel is likely to be the next DA of Queens, saying that we will all work together for access. I'm sure Bishop Taylor and Brother Reverend Dr. Pope Young and others, to make sure that as we see a progressive go in the prosecutor's seat, a seat that it was hard to get meetings and hearings before, that people can feel that there will be balance and justice. The scales of justice is held by a lady blinded, holding balance. And that's all we want. But too long has the scales been tipped. And now we're on our way to evening the scales. And let me bring on our sister, and who is likely to be the next Queen's DA, Tiffany Caban. Give her a big hand.
Good morning. Good morning. It is an absolute honor to be here this morning alongside Reverend Al Sharpton and everybody else that is here. You know, for decades, the Reverend and folks in this room have led the fight for racial justice and equality, but not just equality, equity. Your efforts have been critical in making criminal justice reform, income inequality, voting rights, and racial equity part of the national conversation. And these are issues that drove my campaign. Your tireless dedication and advocacy has helped pave the way for progress, including my home borough of Queens. And it is an honor to join you here this morning. And obviously, as y'all have already heard, we had quite the election on Tuesday night. And I am proud to say that together we made history. We built a movement that is resonating not only in Queens, not only around New York City, but in St. Louis, in Boston, in Philadelphia, all over the country. And our victory belongs to folks who have been locked up on Rikers simply because they could not afford their bail. It belongs to those who have struggled with substance use disorder and mental health issues, but have been met with punishment rather than treatment and support. It belongs to mothers and fathers and children, and to all those who have literally put their bodies on the line and suffered irreparable harms at the hands of our criminal justice system. Folks like Dr. Yusef Salaam, Akeem Browder, Gwen Carr, Valerie Bell, and all survivors of state-sanctioned violence and their loved ones. It belongs to innocent, hardworking homeowners and workers who have suffered under a system of unlawful evictions and labor violations and stolen wages. And together we're gonna work to make our communities safer and stronger. And we're gonna do it through community-driven solutions that will rebuild trust, reduce recidivism, and end the war on our Black and brown, low-income, and working-class communities. And for too long, our communities of color have suffered under unequal application of the law. Our system has failed to provide the avenues and success and the tools that are made readily available to others. I have often said, I grew up in South Richmond Hill, Queens. My parents grew up in the Woodside housing projects. And I have often said that if there is one thing that I have learned growing up in and serving communities that have been over-policed, over-criminalized, resource-starved, it's that when we beg for help, we have to wait, and then eventually the government sends police officers. And when you go into other communities, you get help, you get support, you get services, you get access. And that's what we need to be changing. Instead of providing access to mental health services and economic opportunity and stable housing, our system has forced Black and Latinx communities to endure disproportionate arrest rates and sentences. And they have imposed a lifetime of collateral consequences on individuals for many things that are public health issues, and in many instances, for crimes that they didn't even commit. And the over-criminalization and mass incarceration of our Black and brown communities must come to an end, especially here in New York. Especially here in New York, where action on criminal justice reform has long failed to meet the rhetoric offered by our politicians. I entered the Queens DA's race because I saw a system that was broken, a system that was never designed to keep us safe, but instead to prevent poor communities and communities of color from thriving. And with the support of my friends, of my family, of my colleagues, I did what many, and including myself, that was unthinkable in a lot of ways. I am a 31-year-old queer Latina public defender whose parents grew up in the Woodside houses, and I decided to run. You know, we went up against a lot of folks with a ton of money, with fancy consultants, with, you know, an entire political machine behind them, who had handpicked the next DA before voters had a chance to speak for themselves. And the establishment never saw us coming. They said that our coalition was too young, too diverse, too radical to change the status quo. But let me tell you something. There is nothing radical about working towards a criminal justice system that is based on fairness and equity. One that acknowledges its racist and classist roots. And one that applies the law fairly across racial and class lines. It is what we deserve. You know, for too long, we have been told that we have to make this choice between fairness and safety. And we have been sold this false promise of safety, and a culture of convictions at all costs has not made us safe. We know that stability equals public safety. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I was at Greater Allen, and I got to hear this sermon that just left me shook. You know, it just felt so perfect, so relevant. And the pastor was talking about Nehemiah when the walls came down around Jerusalem. And, you know, talking about the fact that Nehemiah was called to rebuild this wall. And there were a lot of people trying to distract him from his work. And he would not be distracted. He said, no, 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 there is work to be done. And that's the moment we're in right now. We have this opportunity to take the torn down walls of inequity and build walls of community. This is our chance to say that we will not be distracted, and we will build something that better serves and protects all of us. And so that is what we are here to do, and I'm so excited to do this work with y'all. We need to stop criminalizing mental health issues and substance use disorder. We need to support our immigrant communities. We need to help folks who are struggling with poverty instead of throwing them into cages. And public safety and the well-being of our communities will always be our top priority. A safer Queens for all those who call this my borough home will require justice, respect, and fair treatment under the law. Our victory on Tuesday is another step towards moving forward in a journey towards a safer and more equitable future for Queens and the rest of this city, but it's also just the beginning. I'm gonna be honest, you know, hard work and significant challenges lie ahead of us. And we must build bridges with communities that are understandably distrustful of our district attorney's office. And at the same time, we also have to work to build relationships with those who may be skeptical of our vision. But that work begins now. And so whether I earned your vote or not, whether you are a Queens resident or you live in our surrounding neighborhoods, I will work every day to earn your trust. Because transforming the system will not be easy, and it will not happen overnight. It will take patience and dedication and work. But I am ready, we are ready, Queens is ready, and beyond Queens, beyond New York, communities over the country are rising up to demand a safer and more equitable criminal justice system centered on outcomes rather than fear. It took a movement to build this new chapter for our criminal justice system, and it will require a movement to sustain our progress. And so being backed by the biggest, most diverse, most beautiful coalition that a borough-wide race has ever seen, we made history. From formerly incarcerated folks, to undocumented immigrants, to community-based organizations and activists, to our local and national elected officials. And in the months ahead, I hope to work with all of you and with all of Queens to move our communities forward. To a future that is safer, fairer, and just. And so I just want to say that I thank you for inviting me here today, and I hope to make you proud. So thank you.
Give her hands. Give her a big hand. I knew that she was the apparent new Queen Gay. I didn't know she was going to preach. We got Jeremiah, Reverend Tiffany now. But she mentioned the Dr. Salam, and one of the things that we've talked a lot about over the last several weeks is the Central Park Five, who are really the exonerated five. And this new Netflix movie that Ava DuVernay has done. And as you know, we were one of the few groups that stood up for them, raised their bail money. It was mentioned in the movie and the documentary. The one that did more time than anyone was Corey Weiss, who went to jail as an adult. And he worked here for 3 years after he got out of jail. No one would give him a job. And he's here every Saturday, and I want him to come and meet the new DA of Queens, Central Park 5, Corey Weiss. Meet the DA. He's a symbol. He's a symbol of why we need progressive DA. That's why we need new prosecutors. From Linda Fasting to Tiffany, that's what it's all about. Send that picture to Donald Trump. Y'all sit together. People want to know why Taylor and Patrick Young and them fighting for change. Carrie Weiss is why. Because they have members in their church that have not faced justice. Children coerced. Children now. You got to remember, a lot of people are forgetting they were children when they made them to admit to a crime they never committed. Babies. And they call us radical to stand up for babies being forced to lie in police stations. That's why coalitions are coming together. Black, white, Latino, Asian, gay, straight, everybody needs to come together. This is a moral fight. If you can look at this picture this week of this man trying to bring his child into the United States and drowns with her holding on to her daddy's neck and shoulders, and nothing moves in you, something is wrong with you. I don't care what church you go to. I don't care what you believe in. If you can look at a man dead with his child and act like there's nothing wrong with that, you have no morality. Any immigration system that allows that, give a hand to Chairman of our board, Reverend Dr. W. Franklin Richardson. Dr. Richardson has been in retreat all week with Virginia Union University, where he chairs the board, and he came. We have guests with us from the African Union. Stand up, these are from the African Union. We're going to be meeting with them about some movements, some intercontinental global movements afterward. Dr. Richardson didn't come to see me, he came to see our global leaders. But as I was saying, meet the new DA, you may get a ticket in Queens. Not that she gonna fix anything for you. She may give you a low bail or something. But if you wanna look at this whole fight, that's why as I sat there at the debates, I was looking at the morality issue. The one thing Dr. King brought into the equation was what was moral and right. Politicians deal with what is expedient. Then there are those that deal with what is right. And one of the reasons why, as I grew up in the movement, raised by Dr. King's lieutenants, I was too young a boy at the time to know Dr. King, saw him twice. But his lieutenants, Wyatt Walker and others, groomed me, is that there are two types of leadership. Typically, there are transactional leaders and there are transformative leaders. Transactional leaders cut deals. What can I get out of this? Can I get a contract? Can I get a friend a job? Can I get some position? Transformative leaders, can we change the system? Can we help the people? That is why the media always want to know what angle we have. Because most in the media are transactional. So they can't imagine that we do this for nothing. Because they do whatever they do for something. So there got to be something I'm hiding. We have fought cases where some of the families have got millions of dollars in settlements. And I've never asked them for one dime, even if I've given them money. Gwen Carr tell you, they got $6 million settlement. I never asked them for one dime. And we help pay for Eric's funeral and everything else. Because we do this because we believe in this. I've lent $200,000 or $300,000 in National Action Network. I don't do this making money. I didn't have life insurance. I was 49 years old. Didn't have life insurance because we was raised to believe in transforming. So they go investigating, looking for stuff, and think we slick. No, we're committed. But they are transactional thinkers because they can't conceive of working 16 hours a day unless they knew what they were going to get. What we get is to make right that was wrong. Why? Because we were wronged all our lives. And said if we ever get a chance to change these things, I'm going to make sure my grandson grows up in a world that is fairer than the world I grew up in. So I'm sitting there in Miami, put me up front with Chairman DNC, and I'm listening. And you can listen to how the candidates speak to tell who's there to transform the system or to promote their career. Let me make it plain now. I spoke at Rosa Parks' funeral. I marched the dusty highways. I've gone to jail in Vieques and about 30 times in New York on civil rights demonstrations. I did not spend nights in jail, the whole summer in jail at Vieques, all of this. Took a knife in my chest marching in Bensonhurst for some Negro to get a job or position. And we stand up there on the stage, people paid a price for me to get here. No, people paid a price to change society and hope if you get there, that's what you would do. We didn't pay a price to put your ungrateful behind in a position. This was not about your career. This was about our community. Why are you worried about them having the right vote in Queens for Tiffany and them? Because people shed blood and died to get us the right to vote. And if anybody should see voting as sacred, it ought to be us. Meg Evans was leading a voter rights campaign in Mississippi, was fighting to get blacks registered to vote. Pulled home one night, pulled up in his driveway, beautiful wife Marilyn and 3 kids inside. Stepped out the car, man blew his brains out, and he died in the driveway to give us the right to vote. 2 Jews and a black, Goodman, Cheney, and Swerner, went down to Mississippi to register us to vote. And the Klan grabbed them and killed them, mowed them down with their eyes open to give us the right to vote. 4 little girls was in Sunday school one Sunday morning. 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. They wasn't protesting, they wasn't in activist class, they were in Sunday school. Man put dynamite in the church and killed those 4 little girls to give us the right to vote. And here you come, living in Jamaica and Southeast Queens and South Jamaica and Hollis, and somebody gotta beg you to get up and go to the polls and vote for somebody that'll give your son a chance not to go to Rikers and give your mama a chance not to be profiled. You ain't got nobody bombing your church. You ain't got nobody shooting you in the driveway. Just too lazy and ungrateful. Well, Reverend, I hear you, but I don't know some of them. They look different to me. They're radical to me. Somewhere I read in the Bible that if you don't speak up, the rocks would cry out. You got too big. You got too exalted. You got too comfortable with those in power that you wouldn't speak up. They put people, stacked them up like cattle right there in the Queen's House of Detention and Rikers Island. But you were too busy going to the inside political receptions. But God is not limited to you. So God said, you won't speak out. I'll take some young folk. Some of them Asian, some of them Latino, some of them gay. I don't depend on you. I use who I will, and I'll lift them up because you are worthless and irrelevant. Don't forget now, Jesus challenged the leaders of the church. It was the leaders of the synagogue that questioned by what authority is he speaking. Hello. People tell me wherever I go, I am so-and-so of what title. But they can't tell me they function. I mean, I go to some cities, we have 100-some chapters, I go to some cities every year. And every year I go, Patrick Young, God got a different title. Started as minister so-and-so. I went back, he was Reverend so-and-so. Next year he was Right Reverend so-and-so. Then he became Bishop so-and-so. Then he became Archbishop so-and-so. He been 6 titles in 6 years and ain't done nothing for nobody. Ain't fed nobody, ain't housed nobody, ain't stood up for justice. Just changing titles. And that's what a lot of us are. Just titles. I'm running for district leader. I'm running for this. I'm running for that. Because you need a title to confirm your irrelevance. And sit around playing with the people while the people is suffering. And we have been stagnant because of our leaders have been engaged in political masturbation. Just checking the community off. Tiffany didn't say that, I said. It's time we engage for real. We talk about a progressive New York. How are we progressive? When you got people sitting out in jail right now because they can't afford bail before trial, haven't been convicted of anything. How are we progressive? When you can roll over and lock a kid up for smoking a joint, but a policeman can choke a man to death on tape, and you won't do nothing about it. How are we progressive? If we keep putting this under the rug, the reason I can stand up is you didn't hire me, so you can't fire me. The same God that called me will protect me to stand up anyhow. People that make history are the people that stand for something bigger than them. Everybody know Moses' name. Don't nobody know Pharaoh's name. All they know is his title. I'm telling our young folk that we had right here in Harlem. Give you a classic example, right here, Brian Benjamin. We had, when I was growing up, I grew up in Brooklyn. And when I was 9, we moved to Brownsville after Daddy left us and abandoned us in Hollis. And we used to come to Harlem. Two biggest guys in Harlem, money-wise, drug dealers, Nicky Barnes. And the other one, they made American Gangster out of Frank Lucas. Y'all old guys say their name like you did business with them. We better do a background check on that. I said the other guy, they said Frank, like they knew him. They had all kind of money, all kind of mink coats, all kind of big cars, all the kind of women. When they moved, they had an army. And all of the things that society, a capitalist society, salutes. Frank Lucas, Nicky Barnes. If they said something, it was law. But both of them, that's why you got to go to the end of the story. Both of them ended up being snitches on their own drug cartel and died under anonymous names. Yet those that serve the community are the ones that are remembered. You don't ride down Frank Lucas Boulevard, you ride down Malcolm X Boulevard. You don't drive up Nicky Barnes Highway, you come up Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard. Those that do right are be remembered. Those that go for the quick fix, the instant gratification, you'll have a season. But 37 Psalms said, fret not thyself because of evildoers. Neither be thy envious against the workers of iniquity, for they will soon be cut down and wither as the grass. But the steps, go further in 37 Psalms, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. If you hold on and go for what is right, you may not have the mink coat, you may not have the diamond ring, but you will have eternal life and be remembered for standing up for what's right. I remember I was in Miami just this week. Man, I was on my way in the theater, I forget what they call the place where they had the debates. But Adrian Arts Theater is where they had the debates. And the older man stopped me and said, Remal. I said, yes. He said his son wanted to take, his grandson wanted to take a selfie. We took a selfie. He said, you know, I arrested you many years ago, I'm a retired cop. I said, that right? He said, yeah, you did a sit-in on the subway tracks. Downtown Brooklyn, about 87, 88. I said, yeah, day of outrage. I did 45 days in jail for it, but we got the killers of Michael Griffith and Howard Beach and Daddy. He said, yeah, well, I'm one of the ones that cuffed you and put you in the wagon and took you to jail. I said, well, what you doing down here? He said, well, I retired, and I'm down here in the retirement and taking care of my health. I had a few health situations. He said, but I watch you on television. I said, yeah. I said, well, I'm in my mid-60s. I get up 4 in the morning and work out, go do my radio show, go do my TV show, and run National Action Network, you retired from your gig. I'm working on the same thing I was working on 87 when you arrested me. He said, you never think about being retired? I said, I don't retire because I am not tired. You retire when you get tired. I feel better now than when I was 40 at 300 pounds chasing a chicken leg. Then when I look up and see Trump, who called for the death penalty, or these 5 young boys coerced into a confession, and even after DNA proved that they were not the ones that were involved in the rape, he still said they did it and still said they ought to be penalized. As long as he's sitting in the White House with his hands on nuclear weapons material, I will not stop, I will not retire, I will not back up. We have got to fight till we bring this nation back on a course where every Corey Rice can get justice. Can you imagine? A man that has done all that, and he's sitting around playing with the future of the globe. They said, well, why didn't Trump believe the DNA? Trump don't believe in climate change. It's so hot that you got some cities that people have got inside because they can't stand the heat, but he don't believe in climate change. Scientists. And this is who y'all got sit up in the White House. Sitting up tweeting to the president of North Korea in the middle of the night, why don't you meet me in the DMZ zone? Like they going to the bar to have a beer. Sending planes at a war drumbeat toward Iran, and then change his mind right before they hit. This is insanity. This ain't just right wing, it's insanity. And you sit around talking about eeny, meeny, miny, mo, who you like debating. Whoever wins, we have got to save ourselves from this mess we are headed further and further and deeper into. Let me tell you this, and I'll let you go. This week, when we saw this Supreme Court, was it Ruchis versus Common Cause on the gerrymandering case? Let me tell you something. When they came back, the Supreme Court this week, and made the decision that they were going to, in effect, allow political gerrymandering, it undercut voting rights and set a pattern all over the country. What it means, because a lot of y'all, you know, they be coming down with these legal decisions, and a lot of y'all don't understand it. That's why, you know, I go in Hardy's office and say, now what that really mean? Because I didn't go to law school. Only law I knew was when I got arrested for civil rights trying to get out. This decision means that state legislators can redraw lines even around political considerations. Now, when they redraw lines, I'm talking about local districts, assembly districts. If they broaden the districts to where they want, they can include enough voters by one ethnic group or race group that will guarantee that that particular office holder remains in office. And they can shrink the amount of black voters and Latino voters and young voters They can also go in black areas and make them larger, so we all vote in one chunk, which only gives us one representative. So when you get to Albany or get to City Hall, they got 13 or 14 reps to out 2 or 3 because they made our districts this wide and cut down our representation, made theirs narrow enough, but they got enough votes to outvote us in local city councils and state assemblies and in the Congress. That's what this decision means. In your face. They're saying you can gerrymander. This is the Supreme Court, which means they will do it all over this country. They will cut up Queens like a birthday cake. They will cut up Harlem. They will cut up the Bronx. And you sitting around wondering whether Liz Warren or Joe Blow is who you want. They are trying to turn back the clock on everything we have fought for. In your face. This gerrymandering decision is a historic setback. And we got to deal with it. And movements don't come from analysts at the top. It comes from folk at the bottom. People sitting up in these studios, I go down and do my show at 30 Rockefeller, set of people sitting there like, that means something.
Well, I'm getting ready to do this, that.
That don't mean nothing. It comes from the bottom up. Sit around appointing yourself important. Sit up and I'll be watching guests come into my show. Oh, I need this certain kind of makeup. You better get on there and say something. Ain't no makeup gonna help you say something that don't make sense. Something happened with my phone. I had to go to Apple because it's in my name. Chris and them travel with me. We go to Apple, and this guy sit up there and know everything. Guy in another counter, getting his phone straight. And just went through all kind of intricate stuff. When he finally got his phone fixed, he called somebody about something that didn't make sense. And I told him, I said, ain't nothing worse than a dumb Negro with a smartphone. You must be clear that we are in the midst of an attempt backlash and return. Because if they can make gerrymandering the law, which they have, they are slowly going back to states' rights. The thing that was so egregious about Joe Biden's answer to Kamala Harris the other night was when he said that yes, you were bust because the local school board voted for that. That was all right. I was against federal intervention. That meant states' rights. The whole fight of the Civil War was a strong national government against states having the right to vote for slavery state by state. The whole fight around segregation was whether states had the right to say you couldn't sit in the front of the bus or not, or go to a hotel or not. States' rights opposing a strong federal government that protects the citizens, particularly minorities, against states having the right to discriminate. If they get states' rights in with gerrymandering, next they will go to women's right to choose. Next they will go to LGBTQ rights. Next they will go to bathroom rights. Next they will get the black rights. We all got to stand together whether we like each other or not. We are all we got. If they can pick us off, they will defeat all of us. That's why I'm telling you it's time for us to get past ceremony. It's time for us to get past who we think we want to be and speak the truth. If you stand up for what is right, God will hold you up. You keep trying trying to figure this thing out your way. Faith is not what you can figure out. Everybody God used, they did not have the blow-by-blow plan. Faith is when your plans run out, but you depended that if you stepped out and proved yourself serious, that God would do the rest. Faith is when it don't make sense, but something inside you makes you go anyhow. Faith ain't what way you pray, what words you say. Faith is when you stand up and say, if I lose it all, I'm going to stand up anyhow. I don't know what church Tiffany go to. I don't know if she go to church at all, but something made her stand up. And if you stand up for what's right, stand up for that old woman in the projects that nobody stood up for. Stand up for that incarcerated young man that couldn't afford a lawyer. If you stand up, God will do the rest. I told Barack Obama I loved this book where he talked about hope. I was mentored by Jesse Jackson. He used to talk about keep hope alive. But I tell my daughters there is a situation in life you'll face where hope alone is not enough. There's going to be crises in your life that hope won't bring you through. But there's another gear that my mama taught me about in my transmission. When hope jams, I can switch to faith. Because faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is when the doctors give up, but you believe in the healing hand of another doctor. Faith is when you got a pile of bills and no money, but you say he will provide all of my needs. Faith is when your friends walk out, when your loved ones turn their back, when your family don't know your name, but you say, I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me now. We come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in his holy word. He never, from the outhouse to the White House, he never failed me yet. Faith, hold on to your faith. Everybody singing. 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 Yeah. I'm opening the doors of the movement. There may be somebody here today that hears us on the radio, sees us on television, but never joined National Action Network. If you are here in the auditorium and are not a member and want to join, come to me right now. Just come on down the aisle to me and let us sign you up. If you're watching by television or listening on the radio, you can call right now to the phone bank, 1-877-626-4651. And join on the phone. Come on, everybody singing. Everybody sing. Everybody singing. Sing it like you mean it. We want justice. Everybody singing. I take the offering and let you go, we are honored to have the ambassador with us this morning. And I'd like our board chairman, Reverend Dr. W. Franklin Richardson, who chairs our board, has been our chairman over a decade, and who also senior pastor of the Grace Baptist Church, largest church in Westchester County, black or white, to come and present the ambassador to say a few words to us. Then we're going to raise the offering and go for the media. Tiffany's not giving an offering. There's no conflict of interest. I know y'all sitting around waiting to see if she's not giving a dime. She did not give any donation for us to praise her. I just want her to get used to, they're going to take shots at her everywhere. So I'm just telling you before you start on that. Let us hear from our chairman, Dr. Richardson.
We certainly want to thank President Sharpton for a powerful message this morning. Come on, let's give him some love. Thank him for, he's always on point, always relevant. I want to welcome to National Action Network a world leader, Her Excellency Ambassador Elkanah Chimhobot is the ambassador of the African Union. The African Union is made up of 54 different heads of state in the government of Africa. Africa is on a progressive trajectory to unite all 54 countries so that they can move together in a one force. They're also in the process of considering creating their own economic currency, like the Euro Union, so they won't be manipulated at the different price levels. But more importantly, they are reaching out to African Americans in this country to own Africa as our homeland, and they want African American businessmen and other persons, schools and so forth, to participate in this new resurgence that is happening in Africa with 54 continent leaders, 54 heads of government coming together in a new, and they are inviting the African American community to be full participants. They reached out to Reverend Sharpton to lead in making the connection to the African business to all 54 countries. And we are happy that the ambassador has come from Washington today to meet with us. And I want to invite her now to come and have a word. Her Excellency, Ambassador Elkanah Chimhobot.
Good morning, Harlem. Good morning. I bring you greetings from your 55 African heads of states and your 1.27 billion brothers and sisters on the continent. My name is Ambassador Dr. Elkanah Chimhobot. In my previous life, they called me Dr. C, for I was a practicing physician in Tennessee. Of course, after having immigrated to this country several years ago. I bring you great news about the wonderful, amazing news that are going on in your Africa. There is a wave of change that's going across the continent. I like to call it the unfinished business of the Organization of African Unity is coming to an end. For those of you who may not remember the Organization of African Unity, this is when the 55, then 32 African heads of states came together to meet in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to undo the damage that was done to the African continent when they met during the Berlin Conference in 1884 and divided Africa into the countries that Africa is today. Tiny little economies that clearly cannot survive on their own. It was all done by design in a way to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. That was 135 years ago in Berlin. Those countries that set out to destroy Africa and her children were the former colonizers. Prior to meeting in 1884, they had started the process of divide and conquer with the slaves. As if that was not enough, after dividing the continent into the tiny economies that we are today, I like to always highlight one particular country that did something absolutely deplorable. Between 1958 and 1961, France, which was one of the colonizers, in order for the African countries to get their independence, they had to sign a document, what they called the continuation of colonization. On one hand, you are supposed to get your independence from these colonizers. But in order for you to do so, you must sign a document that they titled the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. What kind of freedom is that? Two countries refused to sign the document. That was Guinea and Mali. History tells us France went into those two countries, took everything that they thought they had brought to those two countries, poured concrete into the sewage pipes, completely devastated the two economies, as a way of showing the other remaining 12 countries that if you dare go against France, this was your fate. The Pact for the Continuation of Colonization, I'm going to highlight a couple of items that will make you sick. The Pact said, you Africans do not know how to manage your money. At that time, they called us monkeys. You have to deposit 85% of your bank reserves with the French Central Bank under the control of the French Minister of Finance. Should you wish to access some of your money, you have to submit your financial report for the country, and if approved, you can only access up to 20% of that money as a loan at commercial interest rates. Your own money. And on top of that, France would pull together all your deposits, the deposits from the 14 African countries, pull them together and invest your money in the French stock market, and the countries may or may not know the returns. To add insult to injury, France was the only one that could print their money. So if you were to be a leader of a country, what power do you have if you can't control your own finances? It got even better. They said all your gold, all your minerals discovered and yet to be discovered, all the oil discovered and yet to be discovered, the French companies have the first right of refusal. Your companies within your countries can only have whatever French companies do not wish to have. They also said all your military will be trained by France. You can only buy military equipment from France. That France will have military presence in your country, and that France will invade you without notice should they feel French interests are being violated. You also cannot have any alliance with your neighbors. That in the event of war, you can only align yourself with France. That the language of instruction shall be French, and that the French companies are the only ones to print your textbooks. So you can imagine, my brothers and sisters, for those who ask the questions, why is Africa where it is today? If you were to be a president of an African country today, and the first day your chief of staff comes to you and reads to you the do's and don'ts as stipulated by the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization, what power do you have? So first we are divided into tiny little economies, a country called Togo, a country called Gabon, 1.5 million people. You see, all these little countries, they have the same sovereignty on the world stage, as the big boys, as China, as the European Union. Even the Europeans realized that the small little economies, they cannot compete on the world stage, so they came together and became the European Union. The United States realized as the individual states, they cannot compete. They come together as the United States of America. Africa simply wants to do the same and be a United States of Africa. So in 1963, our Pan-African leaders, realizing that what we were dealt with, Africa was left in a losing lane. And that the only way for Africa to reclaim its position on the world stage, Africa must be whole again. So in 1963, the leaders went to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to discuss the issues of reuniting the continent. And let me remind you, prior to the divisions, we were big, powerful kingdoms in Africa with our own educational systems, our own religious systems that were destroyed by the colonizers because we were more advanced than they were. During that formative meeting of the Organization of African Unity, that is when Kwame Nkrumah proclaimed, you are not African because you were born in Africa, but rather you are African because Africa is born in you. He also proclaimed that Africa was for the Africans at home and abroad, and that African Union was now. Sadly, when they went to Addis Ababa, they were divided. We had the Pan-Africanists who said Africa for the Africans at home and abroad, African Union now, but unfortunately there were only 7 countries. Ghana, Guinea, Mali, Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia. Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia, and Egypt. Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia are missing one. Now, there's one more, one Northern African country. The rest were the nationalists who said, let's go slow. So they won. We often say Africa lost when the nationalists won. 55 years later, we are still going slow. However, all is not lost. Last year, March to be exact, the African heads of states came together and said insanity of the previous decades must come to an end. That Africa must speak with one voice if Africa is going to claim back what belongs to Africa. They signed what we're now calling the African Continental Free Trade Area. 52 heads of state signed that agreement. Out of the 52, we only needed 22 countries to ratify this agreement. Ratification means the head of states leave Addis Ababa, which is where the headquarters for the African Union is. They go back to their countries and put this decision through parliament. When it's approved by their parliament, they bring the documents to the African Union. We only needed 22. I want you to know, across the globe, the naysayers were saying the Africans will never get this done. Ratifications take years, and it is true. Ratifications take an average of 5 years. So they were laughing at us. It's never going to happen. This African Continental Free Trade Area is going to be a piece of paper in a drawer somewhere. Well, my brothers and sisters, I want to let you know one thing. When it is time, it's time. Exactly 13 months from March of last year, the 22nd ratification was deposited with the African Union. As we speak, the African Continental Free Trade Area is now in force. July 7th, this month, the heads of states are going to officially launch the African Continental Free Trade Area. And exactly 6 to 12 months later, Africa is going to begin trading as Africa. Not as 55 African countries, but Africa on the world stage. see, you have to understand, as Africa, we are the largest economy in the world, and no country or continent comes even close. Now, this is here where you come in. The African heads of states are saying, for Africa to move forward, all its children at home and abroad must be on the table. You see, you don't go to China and find black people in front of the line. You don't go to India and find black people in front of the line. You don't go to Europe and find black people in front of the line. Why must you go to Africa and find non-Africans in front of the line? That is unacceptable and it cannot happen. You see, they tell you that you should not go to Africa because it is a diseased and dying continent and people are constantly at war with themselves and it is dangerous. Have you ever tried to go to fly to Africa? Over 50% of the flights, who is in there? May I rest my case? So while we are being told do not go to Africa, they are running to Africa to take what belongs to you. The African heads of states are saying the wealth that is Africa belongs to the Africans, and that is you and I, my brothers and sisters. The African heads of states have defined the African diaspora as all people of African descent living outside Africa. If you are an African American, yes, you are an African diaspora. Caribbean, yes, you are an African diaspora. Afro-Latino, yes, you are an African diaspora. They are saying you all must come home and take what is rightfully yours. Let me break it down a little bit further. I'd like to share a meeting that President Trump had with the African heads of states. He said, you leaders, I don't know why you're poor. Because my friends go to Africa poor and they come back rich. I had people calling me. I said, how could he talk like that? I said, well, did the man say anything that wasn't true? The question you should be asking me is, Ambassador, how do we go home to take what is rightfully yours? The heads of states are simply saying, you come home, invest in Africa, come back and play golf while your money is working for you in Africa, like they do. They're saying, Ambassador, organize the African diaspora so they can be on the table to make decisions about the way forward for Africa, so they can be the first ones to know of the contracts that are going to be issued, because whether we like it or not, the railway from Cape Town to Cairo is going to be built. The question is, who is going to build it? Are you going to be on the table to know that this railway is going to be built? The choice is yours. I am here to tell you, I was sent you to bring you home. Are you ready? I'm also here to remind you that you are inheritors of the most amazing, richest continent on earth, that the DNA that runs in your vein is the DNA of humanity, of originality, for life as we know it began in Africa. If that is not enough for you to stand on the tallest mountain and tell the world who you are, the beautiful, intelligent, sophisticated, highly adaptable, totally indestructible African, I don't know what it is. Let's go home.
Give a big hand. Give a big hand. That was wonderful. We are going to be meeting the chairman and I right after the rally with her as we are going to work on the African American aspect of this economic relationship with Africa and the 55 nations there. Some of who y'all's president called shithole countries. That's what he said. Let me recognize also H.E. Sadiq Wise, stand-up ambassador extraordinaire from Sierra Leone. I remember when police in the Bronx had killed Amadou Diallo, and the community had sent for us, and I went to the Bronx, and we started the protest for Amadou Diallo on Wheeler Avenue in the Bronx. And his mother, Madame Diallo, came in from Guinea, and she, at the airport, was met by NYPD, and they brought her and checked her in a hotel on Central Park East on Fifth Avenue. And Mayor Giuliani told her they would take care of everything, stay away from the radicals. And it was Sadiq Wise and Queen Mother Blakely that went to see her and told her, these people are not radical, they're fighting for justice for your son. And the least you could do is meet with them. I was at the House of Justice. We were Madison then before the fire. And Sadiq and Queen Mother Blakely came to the office. I had given up on it. We had done our march. And they said, no, you need to come with us. I said, come where? They said, the mother will see you. I said, she's with Giuliani. They said, just go with us. And we got in the car and went to Fifth Avenue. And they brought me up this big suite that Giuliani had given Madame Diallo. And we talked. And she says, I've seen you on TV in Africa. She said, you'll fight for my son? She says, yes. I said, yes. And Sadiq and them stood for the work we do. She left the living room and went in the bedroom and came back with her bag. And I said, well, where are you going? She says, I'm leaving with you. And that is how the Diallo movement started, because of that man, Sadiq Wise. And Madame Diallo left, and I tell you the truth, Tiffany, I got in the car, and I started calling everybody I knew with a credit card to get a hotel room. I didn't have no car. I could barely pay my rent. And I called a couple of guys, and we kept her in a hotel for 4 months. And finally, we started going down every day to One Police Plaza, having 13 straight days we went to jail. 1,300 of us. Michael Hardy was our lawyer, got us out every day. We started with 9 people. By the time we got midway, 200 and 300 people a day. Mayor Dinkins went to jail. Congressman Rangel. There's never been a string of civil disobedience like the Diallo movement was, and that man helped start it. Give a hand to the ambassador. Before I take the offering, I got one more thing I want to do because I think it is important that we do this while everybody's here. I know Tiffany's going to have to leave, and the chairman is going to take the ambassadors to lunch, and I'm glad he is doing that so he can pay. Y'all order all you want is on the chairman. But this week is the birthday of our Executive Vice President and General Counsel, Michael Hardy. Come on. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. year birthday of my grandson. He's 6 months old today. Happy birthday. Give them a big hand. All right. All right, let's raise our offering and we all going. Glad to see Reverend Kennedy. Reverend Kennedy and others. Our huddle is going to march tomorrow in the Pride Parade. Huh? All right. We're on Channel 7 in the morning. 11 a.m. Ain't no telling what she gonna say, but she gonna be on. We know Mother Kenny gonna get them straight now. Good God Almighty. ABC ain't never gonna be the same. I need to raise our offering quickly. I want to move quickly. I need about 10 people that can start me off with $100 or more. Come first. Come quickly, quickly. Dr. Richardson, $100. Winston Gilchrist, $100. Corey Weiss, the Exonerated 5, $100. Ambassador Y, $100. Emily Moore, $100. That's John Enrique. Been with us a long time. Sylvester Leaks, $100. Woodstock Projects, $100. All right. Abraham, $100. Come on. The ambassador's bringing money. Lord have mercy. Come on, come on, come on, come on. I need some 50s now. 50, 50. I ain't talking about the rapper. I'm talking about money. 50. Brother John, Guardian, $70. Brother Mallory coming. Don Jones, our national board member. Sister Rose, $50. Brother John, thank you. Tracy Boyd, $50. 20s, 20s, 20s. Quickly, 20s, 20s. Mother Gwen Clark. Come on, 20s, 20s. Now everybody, whatever you have, $1, $10, $20, whatever you have, your Metro card, come on. y'all live in Queens? Raise your hand, that's here. All right, good. All right, well, call your name, come quickly, and we're going home. Jacqueline Sharp, Florence Mason, Chuck Woomer, Ukwu, and Tawana Williams. Give them a hand as they come. Certainly we welcome you to new members today of National Action Network. We're happy that you've chosen to be part of this movement, this organization, this family, and we part of yours. As of this moment, you're full-fledged members. This is Brother Bill Griffith, who heads our New York City chapter, our regional director, Derek Perkinson, and they will give you orientation on new members, and we want to see you and be involved together as we fight for justice and fairness. We really appreciate you joining. Face the audience, give them a big hand, and welcome them. Welcome them to the National Action Network. All right. Now we're getting ready to dismiss you that are from Queens. I want y'all to come first. I'm gonna stand there with Tiffany. I want her to shake the Queens folks' hand and let her leave, in which I'll shake everybody's hand and go. Now listen, don't just shake her hand, shake Corey's hand. Don't ask her, do you remember my Aunt Jo that was in Elmhurst Hospital 2 years ago? Because she don't remember. People be asking me crazy stuff. And we try to be nice, but we don't. A lady told me 2 weeks ago, you don't remember me? I was on the second balcony at Alameda me when you preached in Queens 4 years ago. How was I supposed to remember that? So don't be asking us nothing stupid, because we don't want to lie. Let us all stand. Oh, sing praise, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now. Take the hand of the person next to you. Repeat after me. We're an African people, robbed of our names, our language, our families, our self-respect. But we shall rise, never to fall again. Up, you mighty race. We can, if we will. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Shake hands with the one you hold and shake my hand before you